It's a cute thought, right? Save an innocent creature and enjoy a few years of good fortune. The problem with good luck is that it's relative. For some, good means winning the lottery, finding a long-lost family heirloom in the attic, or even just catching the bus just in time. For others, it could mean being the only survivor of a car crash, having a bullet miss their brain by half an inch, or only getting first-degree burns over half their body. I was part of the second group. There I was, bleeding out in an alley in Buffalo, New York. It was far from how I pictured my death. Not that I thought about that kind of thing often. I just always figured I'd die of old age on a rocking chair, as opposed to being sprawled out on the ground with a stab wound or 10 to the abdomen and tasting the pavement between two dumpsters. Well, that's what you get for trying to stand up to a pair of muggers. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but I'm sure you don't need me to tell you that being a human pincushion hurts like a bitch. So like I said, there I was, alone, frightened, and bleeding to death. That's when I saw an upturned ladybug in a puddle of water by my head. I probably should have been contemplating my own mortality, or watching the best of reel go through my mind, but instead, I was staring at this little creature desperately clinging to life and thrashing its legs around pointlessly. In any other situation, I wouldn't have even noticed the poor thing. One less bug in the world, who cares, right? I'd love to say something beautifully poetic, like I saw myself a bit like the bug. We were both lost souls who had forgotten by the world. Perhaps if I saved it, I'd redeem my past misdeeds and die in peace. But that would be a lie. Heck, saving the ladybug's life wasn't even on my mind until I used the last of my strength to bring my arm forward. I was trying to crawl out of the alley. The fact that my hand landed right next to her was pure coincidence. With a stick-like appendages, she clung to my finger and managed to pull herself out of the water and began crawling towards my face. You know what I thought in this accidental heroic moment? I hope she doesn't fly into my mouth. That'd be gross. Dying makes your mind go into really weird places. I went cross-eyed, looking at her blood-red shell as she inched closer and closer to my face. I managed to count up to 12 spots on her back. 12 spots, before the world turned black, leaving me with nothing but the sound of the ladybug scurrying up the bridge of my nose. Next thing I knew, I could hear the distant sound of the heart rate monitor. I'm alive, I remember thinking, but then the beeping got louder and faster than an enraged goose honking at a cyclist. I'm dying? My eyes shot open in panic. The white walls and neon lights that surrounded me caused them to sting as they struggled to adjust to the brightness. When I finally did, I noticed a mass of people huddled over the bed next to mine, frantically trying to revive whoever was in it. My own heart monitor was beeping calmly. It took the hospital staff an eternity to notice I was awake, and with all the action going on in the bed next to mine, I couldn't really blame them. I mean, they were dealing with someone croaking. Saving the dude's life was a little more important than giving me a welcome to the hospital orientation session. That said, I was freaking out a little bit and would have appreciated a word or two. See, I wasn't exactly sure why I was lying in a hospital bed. I didn't have full-blown amnesia or anything like that. You know, when you just wake up groggy and can't remember if it's Sunday or Monday. Yeah, I was kinda like that. But it was worsened by the trauma and the sweet, sweet drugs coursing through my veins. As I sat there, I noticed that a bouquet of balloons tied to the dying man's bed. He must have had over 24 in various shapes, sizes, and colors. There was even a balloon that read, "It's a boy," though I'm fairly certain, judging by the guy's age, it was meant to be a joke. One of the balloons, hovering just above the flower-shaped creation, caught my attention. It was a foil ladybug that seemed to glimmer in the light. The familiar form jogged my memory enough to recall my stint in the alley. The mere thought of the stab wound made the pain in my abdomen flare up. By the time the doctors and nurses were done with the patient, I think they'd forgotten I was supposed to be unconscious because they didn't seem particularly interested in talking to me. I had to draw their attention as they were exiting the room. A doctor and nurse stayed behind to answer my questions and give me a quick checkup. I'll never forget what the nurse said as I asked about how I got to the hospital. "You were lucky. A doctor was walking by and found you in that alley. You almost died." It wasn't the circumstances around my discovery that bothered me, but rather the word she used to describe it. Luck. If she thought that there was anything fortunate about being mugged or stabbed, then she and I had very different definitions of luck. As I told you earlier, didn't I? Luck is relative. If you give good luck to someone who just won a scratch ticket and they start off with a pretty great baseline, everything that happens to the person will be good, if not better than, winning a scratch ticket. If you take someone who was at death's door and was only noticed by a doctor because their arm was sticking out from behind a dumpster, then you have a completely different, much less favourable baseline. I would give anything to be the person that won that scratch ticket instead. It's not like the movies, you know. When you get injured, you don't just get swabbed with a little cotton ball and sent on your way. Even though the knife missed my vital organs, I was still in for months of recovery. To make matters worse, I was let go from my job for needing to take so much time off. My girlfriend of 3 years didn't seem particularly pleased with the turn of events either. Within a few weeks of coming back to the hospital, she left me to rot in our dingy old apartment. Instead of giving me words of sympathy, do you know what people said when they found out? "You were lucky you lost your job. The company was just filed for bankruptcy. At least you just got your severance package. You're lucky your girlfriend left you. She was just a gold digger." Lucky. Right. I had 12 more years of this good luck ahead of me. Probably won't come as a shock to you to find out that I turned to narcotics to make myself feel better. It wasn't entirely my fault. I had to take the meds after the whole getting stabbed thing, which caused me to form a physical dependency. Add all the emotional bullshit to that, and you've got a recipe for prescription pill abuse. And boy was it easy to get my hands on this stuff. I just had to go to a pain clinic, tell the doctor I was having back trouble, and I'd receive a shiny new prescription. The doc and I both knew I didn't need it, but neither of us really cared. Another bottle, another few weeks of carefree numbness. I made it hard to hold a job, but I did not care anymore. It was hard to find the will to live when you feel like you've already died inside. I realize I sound very melodramatic when I say it now, like a line taken straight out of a shitty punk rock album, but that is how I felt at the time. Then, one cold winter day, I had a bit of an incident with a snowblower. It had been snowing non-stop for almost 24 hours and the driveway desperately needed clearing. I decided to take care of it, but halfway through the job, the snowblower stopped working. Cold, frustrated, high off my rocker and eager to get back inside, I stumped to the front and gave the machine a firm kick. I deserved a Darwin Award for that one. I'll spare you the gory details, but needless to say I managed to dislodge a chunk of ice stuck in the gears, and got something else caught in its place. I screamed in agony as the blades chewed through my boots. Thankfully I managed to twist myself loose as I landed on the snowbank. As I lay there I heard the skittering sound coming from the road. It sounded just like the ladybug in the alley. I looked towards the street, only to see a little red Volkswagen Beetle puttering by. The driver stopped, put my severed shoes in a Ziploc bag full of snow, and drove me to the ER. What did the doctor say to ease my woes? "You were lucky it was cold enough to preserve your toes. We managed to save and reattach a few." I was getting real tired of people telling me how lucky I was. Things only got worse as time went on. I lost my car, my apartment, and downgraded from prescription pills to hard drugs. Life was absolutely miserable, and all I could do was try to escape it by any means, even if that meant spending most of every day in a narcotic-induced haze. I spent years as a miserable drug zombie, scrounging what I could to make a buck so I could get a hit. I took something bad one day, not on purpose, mind you. I figure it must have been laced with something, or maybe the opposite, maybe it was too pure. All I know is that it was the worst trip I'd experienced in my entire life. You know the feeling you get when the roller coaster drops over the first hill? Imagine that stomach-turning sensation non-stop. I could feel my heart racing uncontrollably and my body trembling. I had absolutely no control. It felt as though bugs were crawling on and under my skin as I thrashed wildly. It got so bad I hallucinated millions of ladybugs lifting me up and pulling me out of the drug den. I could hear their army of little feet scurrying in unison in an effort to get me to safety. The sound was awful, as though someone had opened the doors to an auditorium filled with chattering people. It echoed loudly in my head, causing me to feel ill. An employee of the Ladybug daycare found me in front of the steps, covered in my own vomit. I can only vaguely recall the sound of the sirens as I was rushed to hospital. They had to pump my stomach with charcoal. Not a fun experience. You were lucky someone found you on time. You almost overdosed. What followed was a mandatory 72-hour hold and a lift to a rehab facility. The thing about rehab is that you kind of have to want to get better there, otherwise it doesn't really work. They can force you to detox. They can force you to sit around in a support group. Hell, they can even force you to make promises you never intend to keep. All that counts for is nothing if you don't want to be helped. At first, I treated my time there as nothing but an opportunity to sleep in a warm bed and enjoy a good meal. As the weeks wore on, however, I started to immerse myself in the treatment program. I wanted to get better. I wanted to get back on my feet. It took a few rocky years and several relapses, but I eventually managed to kick the drug habit. Life had finally calmed down a little. I got into construction, kept my head down, and did my work without complaint. Things were going real well. You know what they say, when things are too good to be true, they often are. I was working on a fixer-upper, a run-down office building that needed serious work. The moron on the roof got our pulley's cord caught on the window ledge. I reluctantly walked over to free it. Just as my foot was about to hit the ground, I heard that noise again, the familiar sound of skittering feet. I looked down and saw a ladybug crawling around in circles on the floor. I should have stomped it to death, considering all the hardships I'd faced because of its kin. But no. I stepped aside instead. Suddenly, the concrete floor caved in. I felt myself fall all 3 stories to the ground, and I heard a violent snap as I landed. When I came to, I couldn't move or even feel my legs. I looked around to get my bearings and saw a huge metal rod to my left, right about where the ladybug had been walking. Right where I would have landed if I hadn't moved to avoid it. I'm sure you know by now what my friends and doctors said. You were lucky to make it out with nothing but a spinal injury. Usually most people don't survive a fall from that height. Lucky. Fucking lucky. When I woke up this morning, I was excited to see the dates on the calendar. It had been exactly 12 years to the day that I had saved that goddamn ladybug. I couldn't help but feel relieved. I wasn't going to get stuck with my curse of good luck anymore. It was time to face whatever fate had to dish out. As I was rolling out of my room, my wheelchair caught the side dresser, sending a mirror crashing to the ground. The sound it made when the glass shattered brought goosebumps to my skin. I swear the broken shards sounded just like millions of little feet as they tumbled across the floor. I've had 12 years of good luck. In that time I managed to lose my job, my family, my self-control, and most recently the use of my legs. I became sort of recovering addict with nothing left to live for. I'm not sure I can survive 7 years of bad luck.